I started, I think it was 2 weeks ago, to talk in more detail in more detail the Ānāpāṇasati Sutta, mid-length discourses 118, the most detailed mindfulness of breathing instructions of the Buddha. There he talks about, based on mindfulness of breathing, one can develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 7 enlightenment factors that lead to true knowledge and liberation. And he gives 16 steps, or 16 different instructions about developing different qualities based on mindfulness of breathing. So that time I talked about the first 4 of these. When breathing in and out, one knows where the breath is short or long, and then experiencing the whole body, breathing in and out, being aware of while breathing in and out, being aware of the whole body, and then calming or stilling the bodily formations. On the one hand, the breath becomes more peaceful, or paying attention to the peaceful quality of the breath. In brief, it was from the last time, and today the next 2 or 3 instructions from the Buddha are experiencing. I will train myself. I'm going to translate. Maybe one trains oneself to experience rapture, breathing in and out, and one trains oneself experiencing happiness, breathing in and out. The 2 factors of samadhi, of composed or calm mind. So how can one train oneself to experience happiness or rapture in meditation? The Buddha, usually the way he explains samadhi development, he says that gladness leads to a Pali called pamoja. Gladness leads to rapture, and then to happiness. And so gladness on the one hand, you can experience gladness. Like the Buddha says, it's a like one can be glad about many things, obviously, about some success or getting something or whatever, experiencing something nice. One can be glad or looking forward to something like that. But in this case, it's a gladness that comes from the mind is free from defilements or free from obstructing factors. On the one hand, like for example the 5 hindrances, sense desire, aversion, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse and doubt. Or on the other hand, if the mind is interested and stays with if one stays with a meditation object in a skillful way, then the mind can get uplifted by that, and gladness arises. And that's also something generally important to pay attention to. It's also then later in this instruction, the Buddha gives them this instruction, I will breathe in, gladdening the minds, and breathe out, gladdening the minds, to train oneself to gladden the mind. So as one actually observes, it's in one's meditation practice, am I practicing meditation so that the mind gets uplifted and gladdened? how does one train oneself to feel more and more miserable in meditation practice, like breathing in and it's unpleasant and boring, and breathing in and out, making the mind more and more miserable. And so I say it's important obviously to pay attention what's going on there, or what way one is practicing and what is the result, and to be aware of that. There can be different factors, at least from my experience. It can lead to gladness, or like making the meditation more enjoyable. One way is just the physical way of breathing. For example, as I already mentioned, like to pay attention. Are you breathing in a way that makes you feel like tense or tight or narrow? And on the other hand, or like you're pushing the breath out a lot and like squeezing it out and pulling it in, and actually, for example, it wouldn't be necessary to have so much movement, and just experiment. Like, for example, instead of just pushing and pulling the breath out for a very long time, you can just maintain a sense of fullness during the in and out breath. Like, for example, we're breathing out and in just half the amounts that you would usually breathe, and just maintaining a sense of fullness rather than squeezing the breath. And also obviously, like, we can also notice, like, observe, are there any tensions in the body? Can also make it more unpleasant. Like, we can relax some tension in the body. Yeah, so basically, you can see, can one breathe in a peaceful or relaxed way? More like the physical aspect of the breathing process. On the other hand, maybe I should have also said this the last time, mindfulness of breathing is not primarily a breathing exercise. It's about some perfect way of breathing, but more, actually the main thing is in a way to develop mindfulness and attention based on the breath, but not so much to create some perfect breath experience. Another factor that can make it more pleasant or enjoyable or gladdening the mind is mindfulness of breathing, and also what perception do you have of the breath. For example, just maintain having this, being aware of the whole body. Like, another thing that for example, makes it more peaceful, at least from my experience, one can just, instead of feeling, like, usually maybe feel a body in terms of, here is a foot or a hand or a head or so on, instead of just, for example, not so much paying attention to these details, but just can you stay with the movement of the breath, expanding and contracting in space, not so much paying attention which part is exactly there and so on, but just having this approximate, like, being aware of, like, approximately, like, around the body, sort of a sphere or like a ball, and then the breath is just expanding and contracting in space. Also, for example, you can try what makes it easy to maintain mindfulness of the whole body. Let's say we're staying with is it possible to just maintain this perception, being mindful of the whole body? What can also make it easier if you stay with two spots, let's say top of your head or at the base of the spine. For example, if that makes it easy to stay with the whole body. Just some examples to try out, basically, what makes it easy to stay with the whole body, being aware of the whole body in the breath. Another thing is the way we direct our attention or how we relate to the breath can also make it more miserable or more enjoyable, the meditation. We have to observe, are you directing your attention in a forceful or hard way or like a tense way? Are you doing the meditation like a something perfunctory, like a job or a chore that you have to do? This type of attitude. And obviously then, on the other hand, can you develop some focused, continuous, sustained, joyous interest in the meditation object? So hold the meditation object with gladness, or to applying the mind with delight to the meditation object. Can you recognize something peaceful or uplifting in the breath, and then staying with this sensation? It's also important to see that one can make a lot of effort or a very intense effort, but in a joyful way. That is not a contradiction. These two qualities can go together, and it's also more than this joy or this interest. Then it's like an engine that also sustains one's practice. The Buddha describes also when he talks about abandoning the 5 hindrances, also in this sense one can, if one reflects about it, one can gladden the mind, like one is glad that one can dwell with a mind free from aversion, with immeasurable goodwill, or one can be glad that one can abandon sloth and torpor, like a dull or murky mind, and instead dwell with a clear, bright mind which is mindful and clearly comprehending, and be glad about that one can develop at least practice to develop the mind in this direction, abandon the restlessness and remorse, and be glad that one can dwell with a mind that is inwardly peaceful. At least, if one notices one is, say, distracted, one can at least, at the beginning of the meditation, remind oneself, now can practice to develop a mind that is inwardly peaceful and enjoy that. And also to see meditation as a form of punya, a form of good action. Like punya is the merit, good actions by body, speech and mind, and the happiness that we experience because of our good actions, either in this life or in future lives. So I think very often Westerners don't seem to see meditation so much as a form of punya in this sense, as you see here. Meditation is something I'm happier, meditation is something we're happy about, and happy about doing something good, but it's more like something, I don't know if at least this mood that I picked up in some meditation retreats is often it's very serious, in a way that one has some serious task, and but not so much, it's nice, now I can do something good for myself and for others, and enjoy that. It's usually very serious, what I remember from meditation retreats. Buddha says in one sutta, the Bojjhanga Samyutta, I think, he gives a simile of a cook, or like two different cooks. One is incompetent and one is skillful, and the incompetent cook, he's just cooking always the same things, but he doesn't pay attention what his master likes, and so he doesn't get any wage increase and promotions. And on the other hand, the skillful cook, he's cooking different dishes, and then he observes, is my master taking more of this one or less of this one, and does he like that one, or whatever different things that the cook is cooking. And then, because he's attentive to that, then he gets some wage increases and promotions. And similar is like some monk doesn't pick up what the mind actually likes. Essentially, like in terms of meditation, what way of practicing, or what way of staying meditation object is actually picked up by the mind, and because of that he doesn't experience gladness. And then some other monk is more skillful, and he is actually observing how does the mind respond to one's own Dhamma practice, and what does he pick up, like what meditation object or what way of meditation does he like to stay with, and then he develops his practice according to that. So to be sensitive to what you are doing and observant in this way, like it's also something helpful. What's the difference between piti and sukha, rapture and happiness or pleasure? Yeah, the piti is more like on one hand it's more this quality of uplift or movement. It can be like a tingling sensation or flush. Or the chaos, standing on end. Like the mind becomes like buoyant and light. And it can be like momentarily, or like with in and out, together with the in and out breath, pervading the body. And then when the Buddha describes, when he describes samadhi, like the body gets more and more pervaded by this sensation. And yeah, like it gives this similar of like a bowl, if I can remember it correctly now, like some barber uses some soap powder, and then he's sprinkling into this water, and then making a bowl out of that, which is completely like pervaded by the water, in and out, and similar, the body gets pervaded by that. Or then later, if it gets stronger, like the Buddha describes, it just wells up, similar like if there's a lake and there's a well underneath it, and the water that comes out of the spring, the cool water, pervades the whole lake, and in the same way, this rapture and happiness pervade the body. This sukha happiness is more, at least from in this quality of this one experienced in samadhi, it's more like continuous or less associated with an upward, like with an uplifting movement. But they are also difficult to distinguish. Usually, like rapture and happiness, they always arise together, and only later, like when the samadhi gets stronger, then the rapture disappears, and only the sukha, the more calm quality, remains. So it's not so easy to distinguish actually the two. Yeah, similar maybe with, say, if a plane is taking off and it's raining or the weather is not so nice, then when it's taking off, there's a lot of movement, there's these turbulences, the plane is taking off and there's these turbulences, and then once it has reached a certain height and like ascended above the clouds, then it's more just a steady flight. The sky is blue, and so similar, like the rapture is more this movements than basically when the mind's it's more like uplifted at the beginning, there's more movement, and then once it gets beyond this level, it's more steady and less movement. Another interesting thing that one can learn from that is also how does one's mind react to experiencing happiness or pleasure. We get excited about it, or tense up, or feel embarrassed about it, or whatever reactions we can notice. And the Buddha, he said that like when he developed samadhi, he practiced so that even this happiness wouldn't overpower his mind. So also the mind can be like overpowered or like by this form of happiness. And to example, if we can stay, say if this feeling is more strong, and we can just stay with the body posture and the breath continuously, rather than focusing on the movement, staying with that, and also developing more the onlooking quality of the mind. And like this, and mostly staying with the cause for samadhi, with the breath and with the whole body, and not so much focusing on the movement. Already last time there was a question about getting attached to samadhi or getting stuck in samadhi. The Buddha calls this also the happiness of seclusion and the happiness of awakening, and he says that should not be feared but actually be developed. It's a part of the Noble Eightfold Path, and something that we have to actually use to cross over to the other shore, in a way, one can say. And also it's unnecessary, like the Buddha says, it's actually necessary to develop a different form of happiness if one wants to escape sensuality. One actually needs another form, to experience another form of happiness. And so also from that perspective it's important to develop samadhi, because otherwise the mind will just basically latch on to whatever is available, and then if nothing else is available, then it reverts to pleasant sense experience. So I guess I think mostly it's similar, like the similar of the raft for crossing over to the other shore. It's good to, as long as you're crossing over, just hold on to the raft and make sure that you stay on it. And similar with samadhi, actually one takes care of one's samadhi and mindfulness and develops it and makes it stable. And I think generally, I think if one is maybe non-returner, then one can start to worry about, or to get attached to samadhi. Maybe this is something I should be very careful about, and otherwise I might stay in the pure abodes very long. But meaning the only danger one can expect in a way is one starts to, for example, observe the 8 precepts continuously, and they give up one's normal way of life, like either still as lay person or as monk or nun. I think that is whatever. If the samadhi gets more powerful, that might be a danger that one can expect, but it's just a part of the path, and Okay, any questions, comments, experiences? Mm.
To the sense of well-being.
Mm.
Of course, I would say that if you experience it repeatedly and the conditions that lead to it, then you know that it's not so much a matter of attachment, it's rather a matter of whether the conditions are there or not.
Mm.
But the other thing is, it's always, all this can only take place because the breathing is there in the living body.
Mm.
So, in that sense, that condition needs to be met,
Mm.
and therefore attachment, naturally cannot. It's like it would be simply, you cannot. The conditions might be there for you to have this great sense of well-being and happiness, rapture and happiness, but you know that you're just kind of lucky, and it's all still subject to the body that is going to die.
Mm.
So, and that will not change, despite the sense of well-being.
Mm.
I'm not sure of that.
Yes. I think generally it's, for example, more difficult if a person is dying and has strong pain, or difficulty with the breathing, actually maybe almost not able to breathe anymore. It's definitely more difficult to develop samadhi based on mindfulness of breathing than, but also, for example, one can, there are some sensations that are unpleasant with the breathing process, but then there's still maybe some some aspect of the breath which is still like peaceful, or where one still can still stay with it, even if in general it's maybe difficult to breathe, for example. Like also if, let's say, if it seems like the whole body is completely like pervaded by pain, for example, one can also say focus on the quality of space. For example, if it seems like that, but then there's also good to question this perception we have, like about pain. We have a certain perception about pain, how it is affecting the whole body, and the feeling of being threatened, for example. So, I mean, I think another thing, in a way, by developing samadhi and by contemplating the body, it can also become more clear that actually this, at least from this my like interpretation of it, but how to say, that the actually two, like these mental qualities of rapture or happiness, they're actually mental qualities. Like one, because of the way one develops the mindfulness of breathing, we develop this perception of that the body gets pervaded by this rapture, happiness. But actually the four elements of the body, and I think this quality is actually two separate things. That's also something that the Buddha later describes, the developing insight knowledge about the four elements, that the four elements and consciousness are actually two different things. And so in a way, if one simultaneously contemplates the decaying nature of the body, like with the body parts or the four elements, and the decay of the body, like that, it becomes more apparent. Also, like for example, this experience of brightness of the mind can be either experienced like as pervading the body, or as inner brightness is actually something separate, like something independent of the body in a way. Like similar, maybe if you have practiced metta meditation and you had a sense of a goodwill towards other beings, radiating outwards, you can maybe have experienced that this uplift, this brightness just radiates outwards. And this can be similar with this quality of samadhi, that they actually then experienced as something like separate from the body, like the citta, this citta that is bright. You can see this is like a separate entity. There's the body, with these four elements, and hair of the head and hair of the body and so on, and nails and teeth, and then there's this brightness of the citta. If one, like in the classic description, the Buddha in the sutras of the Buddha in the sutras, they describes it developing samadhi to a very high level, to the fourth jhana, and then developing this insight knowledge of the four elements. But I think if one contemplates or the practices simultaneously, then also it can, one can at least to some extent maybe have some experience of that as well.
That would be a good deal.
Yes. I think it just depends like to what extent. Yeah, what can I say? And the more one has developed a form of happiness or inner stability independent of the five senses, and seeing the body as decaying and alien, the less the mind gets disturbed. And this, is then just like a burden that falls away. Like it's the manifest, like the four, like this, the skin and the flesh and the bones and so on. They're already the manifestation of decay and death. And so to that extent to which the mind sees them as decaying and alien, that the mind is already disjoined from them. And then, I mean, it depends just obviously how, to what extent, to what depths one has contemplated that. It can be just from getting maybe a little bit less disturbed to being still completely peaceful, even if strong pain arises or one is in the process of dying. But in principle, then it just depends like how, to what extent one has developed samadhi on the one hand, and to what extent one has actually seen the body as decaying and alien, and is already like liberated, like the citta, where it just can be already liberated. One doesn't have to contemplate this like only at the time of death, but one can already escape now. Like no need to wait for a long time. So it's one can already, if one practices in this direction, then at least the mind gets less affected from some whatever happens with the body. If one, it's good to take good care of one's body, but then there is this possibility of escaping, like in the sense of escaping, in the sense that the mind finds a different form of stability and peace. Yeah, otherwise, if there are no other questions, then continue the next time with more about developing mindfulness of breathing and the citta, the mind or heart, being, Buddha gives different instructions about that as well, like the experiencing the citta sankharas and the citta, and stilling the citta sankharas. Then for the next time, more if you like.